Today is how to change a contactor. Alright, our contactor is going to be located beneath the service panel. As always, safety first, so pull the disconnect and ensure that your power is off. You will be messing with 240 volts at 60 amps or less, but that, if it gets a hold of you, will not both poles get a hold of you, it probably won't let you go. So, safety in mind, as always. Turn off the power. Ensure that you have a multimeter that is functioning correctly and has been tested and updated. So as you can see, we have our contactor here. Our contactor is showing some pitting and burning. So we've also tested this contactor. The ohms on our coil are 63. It's not pulling in correctly. So as always, whenever make sure your power's off before you touch anything. But we have some screws mounted back here. Now you're going to want to either A, be able to read a blueprint and be able to put everything back the way it's supposed to, like I can, or you're going to want to label everything and make sure that you put everything back exactly the way it came off. Because you're dealing with two poles here. If you were to put the two wires for the compressor, let's say on the same pole, nothing would happen. The compressor would not start because it requires 240 volts and you'd only be supplying 120 or 110. But so make sure that you are diagramming everything correctly, and you're going to look at the plate here to determine the type that you have. This says it's 240 volts up to 277 VAC. You can take 480 or 600, but this particular one is recommended 240, and we are at a 30 amp load rating. Lockup rating is 180, and this is a 24 volt coil, 24V. Make sure that when you ask for it, that you are getting the same one. There are reasons for that. This is what we call a 1.5 pole. As you can see, there is a contactor on one side, not on the other side. That is so the electricity can pass. This air conditioner is energized at all times, mainly because it's a heat pump and it has a crankcase heater, and it needs to be energized all the time in order to prevent what we call slugging of the compressor. When it gets really cold outside, liquid will migrate back to the compressor and completely saturate the compressor when it cranks, and that causes damage to a compressor, because compressors don't compress liquid, they only compress gas. So let's get started now, because I only have two hands, and I'm going to do the best I can to show you. But we're just going to simply take our screws out, and I'm going to get those off. I'm going to show you two ways. Now I would just pull everything off because I know exactly where everything goes, and if I'm not sure, then I can read my blueprint. But for those of you who are homeowners or not very proficient at this, I'll show you a pretty easy way to do it. So hold on 1 minute, let me get the screws out, and then we'll go from there. Okay, So now we've got our contactor, which is a little bit different. This one's a little bit higher quality. I like the lugs, but this one's not a bad one that's in there. But for those who are not proficient, here's what we're going to do. So we're going to pull off wire from here and put it on here to ensure that you're putting them on the new contactor the same as the other one. So that's a simple way to make sure that you're just simply transferring it is all. So you're going to want to make sure that it lines up exactly the same. The one-sided poles on the same side, and then you're going to pull off one of these wires from this contactor and just simply transfer it to this contactor. That's all you got to do. It makes it fairly simple that way for people who haven't done this and maybe just not very comfortable with reading blueprints. But highly recommend you learn how to read blueprints, especially if you're going to be in this trade. So let me pull a few off. I only have two hands, so let me show you what it looks like. As you can see, I just simply transferred the black wires from my old one to my new one. So that's kind of what you'll be doing. Now these are your low voltage. They're going to be on the side. And you're going to ensure that the power to the indoor system is off. Otherwise, these are still energized. And if you were to make contact with these, with the metal, while they're still energized, you're going to blow a fuse and possibly even short out a transformer. So always, just because we're working on the outdoor unit, you still have to turn off the power to the indoor unit. So we'll pull all these off and show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've got it in place. We got our 24 volts, which are yellow, but doesn't necessarily have to be yellow. We have our common on this side. It's kind of hard to see with all these wires. But, this is our common of the contactor. We have our common side of our one leg of the compressor, our run side of the leg of our compressor. Down here we have our load line, or excuse me, our lines coming in. Pole number 1, pole number 2, and both the poles have been marked black. That's to indicate that both of these are 120. If you ever see a white wire that's been painted black or something like that, that's what that means. It means both of these are hot. And underneath here we've got our crankcase heater, which is connected to the bottom on both sides, so that it ensures that it's getting voltage all the time. So we've got all of our screws back in place, and so now all we have left to do is test everything, make sure everything works correctly. Also, you're going to want to make sure that you torque down your on your wires really well. Make sure that you have no loose wires anywhere. We want to make sure everything is nice and tight. A loose connection will cause problems. So, like and subscribe and ask any questions that you may have. I'll be more than happy to help anybody in any way I can. As always, have a great day.